If you're watching this, I don't know if that means I'm dead, missing, or if something I can't see has already taken hold. But either way, you need to know the truth. It starts with a name, Corvin. My son. Corvin is 6 months old now. He's asleep in the next room. It's 2:57 a.m., and as I write this, he's about to wake up. He always does, at exactly 3 o'clock. And he always wakes up smiling, almost like someone whispered to him in his sleep. As if an unseen hand wakes him to play. Always on time. When he was born, he had a mark on his neck. Not the kind that fades or blends into the skin. It was sharp, clean, intentional, almost like a symbol. And I still don't know what it means. My name is Nora. And if this is the only thing I leave behind, please believe me, he's not like other children. I didn't plan on being a mother. Not after the things that were done to me. But when he came, I told myself I could do this. I didn't plan on doing it alone. It started with a boy from high school. The kind who never tried to stand out but somehow always did. He was charismatic without effort. Quiet, but never awkward. When he looked at me, it felt like he saw everything I was trying to hide. He made me feel known in a way I hadn't even realized I'd been longing for. We were together for over a year before Corvin was born. I remember the day I told Varnak we were going to be parents. He didn't react the way I expected. No panic, no promises. Just this strange stillness in his eyes, like he'd already known. A few days later, he vanished. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. I know how it sounds. People don't just vanish. But Varnak wasn't like most people. He didn't have a Facebook. No family ever called him. He always paid in cash. I used to joke that he was a ghost. And every time I asked to take a photo together, he'd smile and say, "Some things are better remembered than recorded." Back then, it felt mysterious, like he was just a private person. Looking back at it now, there were signs. Things that didn't make sense. But love has a way of blinding you to red flags, especially when you've spent your whole life just hoping someone will stay. I told myself he'd come back once he was ready. But he didn't. I tried to find him again, nothing lined up. My friend squinted like she didn't know who I was talking about. "You mean someone from our school? What's his name again?" My professor didn't recall ever seeing him in the lectures he attended with me. Even the cafe staff where we went on our first date said they'd never seen him. Not once. Eventually, I went to his apartment. I knew the building, I'd been there dozens of times. I even remembered the buzzer code. But when I got there, something was off. The landlord answered the door. An older woman in slippers, holding a mug. She looked confused when I asked for Varnak. "Varnak?" she repeated, like she heard the name for the first time. "Sorry, no one by that name's ever lived here." I told her the unit number. I described him. I said I'd been up there with him before. She shook her head. "That unit's been vacant for over a year," she said. My heart dropped. I didn't know what to say. It was as if he had vanished from reality, or worse, like he was never real to begin with. I started to question myself. Was I losing it? Could my trauma have warped something in my mind, made me imagine love? But I was pregnant. That part was real. The ultrasounds. The fluttering kicks. The nausea. The hunger. The hollow, aching hope. All of it was real. The only thing that wasn't, was him. At my 20-week scan, something felt off. The technician's smile slipped when she looked at the monitor. Her eyes darted, and she called in another doctor. They whispered, too low for me to hear. But I saw their faces. They were afraid. When I asked, they said everything was fine. And I believed them. Because I wanted to. Because I needed to. Because I thought he might be the one thing that saved me. Because hope was easier than fear. And being a mother felt like the one thing that could make me whole. But now, I'm not so sure. Because he always wakes up at 3 o'clock. Smiling, like he's happy to see someone I can't. His eyes stay wide open, fixed on the ceiling. And he talks to someone who isn't there. And that scares me more than anything. Because I'm his mother. But in those moments, I don't think he's mine. And yet, I protect him. I still reach for him when he cries. I still wrap him in blankets and rock him to sleep, even when my heart is pounding. Because I promised I'd be better. I grew up in a house where fear lived in every corner, and love always came too late, if it came at all. My parents didn't protect me from the dark. But I will protect him from whatever this is, even if the dark is already inside him. Growing up in that house, no, that prison, was like walking barefoot on broken glass every day. My mother was an alcoholic. My father brought women home and made no attempt to hide his drug use. Their fights were loud, messy, and filled with blame. They only noticed me when they were angry, when something else had gone wrong in their world and they needed somewhere to throw that rage. Then suddenly, I existed. I became the punching bag. At home, it didn't take much. A spilled drink. A forgotten chore. A tone they didn't like. Any small thing could spark it. If I cried, I was told to shut up. If I asked for anything, I was called ungrateful. Like I said, I wasn't the child they wanted. And they never let me forget it. At school, either no one noticed, or no one cared. And it's worse when the one place you're supposed to feel safe becomes the one that hurts you the most. Stories were the only place I ever felt safe. They didn't just distract me, they saved what was left of me. I remember one Christmas Eve, standing barefoot on the cold floor, clutching a crumpled piece of paper where I'd drawn a picture of a storybook. I'd made it myself, coloring it with broken pencils, folding it like real pages, pretending it was something someone might care about. When I finally showed it to my mother, she barely looked at it. She said, "Why are you still up?" And when I didn't answer fast enough, she tore it in half, without even reading it. She didn't say another word. Just poured herself a drink, sat down in front of the TV, and turned the volume up until it drowned everything else out. When the bottle was empty, she hurled it in my direction. It missed me, but not by much. Finally, she turned her head, her eyes glassy and slow with liquor. "The only story you need to learn," she said, "is that no one's coming to save you. Not Santa. Not me. Not anyone." I just stood there. Still. Holding the torn paper like it was the only piece of myself I had left. Then she grabbed my arm, hard, and dragged me down the hallway. She opened the door to the spare room. The cold one. The one without lights. She shoved me inside and slammed the door shut behind me. I screamed. I shouted. I pounded on the door until my hands went numb. Guess she was right, no one came. I grew up knowing I was utterly alone. Not in the quiet, peaceful kind of way, but in the way where your voice becomes a sound no one hears. Where even the walls forget you're there. My only flicker of comfort was my grandmother. She made sure I ate, even if it was just toast shoved across the table without a word. She wasn't warm, she was cold, bitter, and sharp, but in her own way, she kept me alive. And when the worst happened, when everything truly collapsed, she was the only one who didn't look away. Until one night changed everything. I was just about to fall asleep when I heard my mother scream. Not the usual arguing. Not the sharp words I'd learned to tune out. This was different. There had been times, awful nights, when my father would raise his hand, or threaten to. But that night, he became violent for the first time in a while. I saw blood on the kitchen floor. A lot of it. Thick, dark, and spreading fast across the tile. I was 16. And for the first time in my life, I screamed at him. I stood between them, shaking, furious, saying things I didn't know I was brave enough to say. He'd struck my mother so hard she hit the floor. And something in me snapped. His face twisted, not with rage, but something colder. He looked at me like I was a stranger. Like the child he used to hit had finally looked back with something he couldn't beat down. He didn't speak. Didn't yell. He just stared. And then, he turned and walked out the door. My mother looked up at me from the floor. And for the first time in my life, there were tears in her eyes. Not from pain, but something else. Remorse, maybe. Or guilt. As if, in that fragile second, she finally saw me. And for a heartbeat, I felt something I'd never felt from her before. Loved. But it didn't last. The moment shattered when the phone rang.